Monster Hunter Wilds will come with a range of new monsters to the Monster Hunter universe as well as some familiar ones, but right now we can experience 4 of the big monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds in its open beta. We have the Chatacabra, the Balahara, the Doshaguma, and the Rey Dau. All 4 of these monsters can be hunted right now in the open beta of Monster Hunter Wilds. So today I thought I'd go over every single one of these and go over some of the details and things you might not know about these 4 monsters. Let's start with the Chatacabra. It's going to be the first big monster that you encounter in the open beta, as it's something you encounter in the one story mission that you get to do for the open beta. This monster is an amphibian creature. It has an ape-like posture and a huge tongue, like ridiculously big. It doesn't need to be that big, but it is. It's almost like a cross between an ape and a frog. The Chatacabra uses its long tongue to whip at enemies and to lick its own forelimbs, covering them in its own saliva. This saliva has adhesive qualities, allowing stone or other earthen materials to be affixed to its forelimbs, thus strengthening the monster even more by giving it more armor and increasing the power of its punches. This thing spits on itself basically, licks all over its own body, so things stick to it to become stronger. The Chatacabra also likes to charge at enemies with its mouth wide open, but for the most part it's a fairly easy creature to deal with, hence why it's one of the first you encounter in the game. If you target its arms repeatedly with attacks to break off the minerals and stagger the monster, it becomes a much easier fight. So if you notice that it's, licking itself basically to strengthen its arms with dirt and stone and everything, target those areas and it will become weaker and much easier to deal with. This is especially the case with the new focus mode, which allows you to sort of target areas a lot better, be a bit more maneuverable with your attacks, so you're not constantly missing combos like you might have in previous Monster Hunter games. And I've already mentioned how massive the tongue is, so thank God it's actually a weak point for the monster. If it attacks with its tongue, you can guard against it or dodge, and then you are able to strike back at it to hit the tongue while the monster recovers, dealing lots of damage and able to stagger it quite easily. However, you've got to be really wary of these tongue attacks because they can be devastating if you get caught out by them. One more attack you should watch out for is its charge attack. It will come storming at you with its big hulking arms and will actually do a lot of damage if you manage to get caught up in this, so be sure to watch out for this, dodge out the way, back off and get ready to go in for more attacks once it's done charging. In my opinion though, this is definitely one of the easiest monsters to deal with, but in saying that, it's an extremely fun fight still. Really enjoy coming across this monster, and it's a great way to introduce new and old players back into Monster Hunter. The second monster you're probably going to encounter in the open beta is the Doshaguma. This is a fanged beast, bear-like creature. It's covered in thick golden brown fur, and these guys tend to travel in packs with an alpha. Because of this, using the large dung pods to disperse the Doshaguma packs is extremely useful, because then you can isolate the alpha and start going for him, which is going to be the main target, especially for that initial quest to hunt the alpha Doshaguma. However, if you do get caught out by the regular Doshaguma, they also hit pretty hard and they're quite annoying when they are gathered in packs, so be very, very careful. Like I said, using these large dung pods can help with dispersing them. If you don't have any dung pods for whatever reason, you can also use luring pods to separate the alpha from the rest of the pack. The Doshaguma tends to attack from the front or its sides, so if you get under it in its forearms and stuff, that's where you're probably going to deal the most damage and get off the most combos. Focusing on its forelimbs or front legs is extremely useful, especially when you want to avoid most of its attacks, because it keeps you out of the way of its bite attacks and claw swipes and gives you a chance to actually topple the monster over, making sure that you can deal even more combos. Because the Doshaguma is quite light in terms of its actual hide and skin, you can wound it pretty easily, and targeting these wounds and exploiting them is an extremely useful way of getting the most damage out of your attacks. Breaking well-placed wounds on its front legs can topple the monster, allowing you to deal damage to its head without worry. You can also do this a lot easier with the new focus mode. Like I said, you're more maneuverable, you can target your attacks a lot better, so this is extremely useful for targeting those wounds and destroying them. One of the most devastating attacks the Doshaguma has is its ground break attack. You'll notice it will go on its back 2 legs and actually look as though it's about to belly flop onto you, so be sure to get out of the way of this one, otherwise it it will do lots of damage. It actually breaks up the ground underneath it and can fling you across if you're not too careful. This one's a pretty interesting fight. I enjoy the pack element of this, having to deal with the extra Doshagumas and having to think about, well, do I lure the big one away, or do I get rid of the smaller ones, or do I just sort of put up with it and fight all of them at once? It's a very cool fight, definitely a cool monster, and I actually really dig the armor set for this guy. The third monster on this list is the Balahara. This is a Leviathan-like creature, basically a sandworm. It burrows underneath the dunes, leaps up into the air, does crazy twirling attacks, and is actually very, very quick. But if you're familiar with Monster Hunter games, you know that Screamer pods are great for monsters like this that burrow underneath the ground, because using those Screamer pods will actually break out the monster from underneath the ground, and you will actually stun the Balahara, or any creature that burrows for that matter, meaning you can deal more combos and more damage, gives you some time to actually get in some good attacks. So be sure to take plenty of Screamer pods, use this as much as possible, because this is a very easy way of getting a high combo off. If for whatever reason you run out of Screamer pods, they can actually be picked up from the wild. Flying Bornos that can be found throughout the area drop these, so be sure to pick them up on your way through the areas of the Windward Plains. Another great way of stunning the Balahara is when it starts climbing a Fulgurite pillar. Aim your slinger at the pillar to bring it down and cause it to fall, which also deals a huge amount of damage whilst also stunning it on the ground. Once again, the Balahara attacks a lot from the front, so be sure to get around its sides and sometimes around the back, but ideally you want to be on the side to get the most attacks in and be able to avoid attacks a lot easier from the Balahara, because the Balahara tends to lunge at you, twirl into the ground, and then come out leaping, usually with its mouth. So if you're around the sides, you're gonna have a much easier time of dodging its attacks. However, it does have a few sweeping attacks, again usually from the front, so if you're around the back or the sides, they're usually quite easy to get out the way of. If you are around the back of the monster though, be sure to watch out for its very large tail, as it will do sweeping attacks with this as well. This is another monster that I really enjoyed fighting. I'd say this was my second favorite monster. It's got a really cool design, really cool attacks. I enjoyed fighting it a lot. I actually had to fight two at once during my hunt of this creature, which was quite interesting, but I still really enjoyed it. Found it a bit of a challenge, but not too much where I was, you know, raging or whatever. It's a fairly easy creature to deal with once you know its attacks. The final monster on this list, the one that you're probably most excited for, and it's the fight that I enjoyed the most, and that is the Rey Dau. This is a flying wyvern creature. It's got thunder and lightning attacks. It is super, super cool. I love the design of this creature, and it's probably the hardest creature in the open beta currently. This is basically the big bad of the Windward Plains, much like the Rathalos in the Ancient Forest or Diablos in the Windspire Wastes of Monster Hunter World, but this definitely was by far my favorite monster to fight. This monster tends to appear during the inclemency storms, which is one of the weather effects in the Windward Plains. You'll notice a lot more lightning, thunder, it's quite dark, there's lots of clouds around, the sand starts to pick up, so you're going to probably find Rey Dau during these storms. Rey Dau uses lightning a lot in its attacks. It will usually charge up. You'll see its body parts start to charge with lightning around it. You'll notice it uses wing slams. It will use its horns at the front of its head charged with lightning, and it also does this really cool somersault wing slam, again charged with lightning usually. But the attacks you're going to have to watch out for are its electric discharge attacks. This is where it basically charges up, earths itself into the ground, and shoots lightning out of its head, dealing massive damage. When I first got hit by this, I died instantly. So this is one you're going to have to really watch out for. Luckily, with the new UI changes and stuff, your health bar starts flashing red when something big is about to happen. So you can usually tell quite easily when it's going to do this attack. But if you for some reason don't notice the health bar flashing red, you'll obviously notice when it starts clinging its wings into the ground. That's when it's probably about to charge and do this electrical discharge attack through its head. You can obviously cut off its tail, damage its wings, all the usual stuff when it comes to wyvern monsters in Monster Hunter. And because it is a flying creature, be sure to bring flash pods with you, as this will bring it down from its flight, stunning it on the ground, making sure that you can bring in loads of combos whilst it's stunned on the ground. But Rey Dau is definitely the most dangerous creature in Monster Hunter Wilds open beta right now, so be on the watch for this one. If you don't think you're ready, be sure to avoid it. Maybe get used to the game if you're new before going after Rey Dau, but I still highly recommend doing this in the open beta because it is definitely one of the best new creatures in Monster Hunter Wilds. And that's basically all the big monsters in the open beta for Monster Hunter Wilds. Wilds currently. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite monster is in the open beta currently. What did you have the most challenge with, or what did you have the most fun with? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Monster Hunter Wilds videos. Like I said, there's going to be a lot more beta videos coming over the coming days. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You get LES videos and live streams. And thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!